Floyd Mayweather's defense was not built on reflexes alone, but the question is how he seemed to know what opponents were about to do before they did it. Was it instinct, experience, genetics, teaching, or a combination of everything? Now, Andre Berto offered a fascinating insight into Floyd Mayweather's boxing genius. What made Floyd special was not simply his defense, it was his ability to observe, calculate, and control every second of a fight. The deeper you study Mayweather, the more remarkable his system becomes. Now, when people discuss Floyd Mayweather's defense, they focus on the shoulder roll, the reflexes, and the hand speed. And those qualities, in short, were exceptional. But they only tell part of the story, because Floyd's real advantage was observation. He gathered information constantly. Every movement, every breath, every reaction, that became data. He was not simply fighting opponents, he was studying them in real time and building solutions as the fight unfolded. And Andre Berto, he actually spoke to Fight Hype, I think it was some years ago, about some of the details that made Mayweather so difficult to beat. He explained that Floyd would regularly look at the clock during rounds. That might sound insignificant, but it was a part of his pace-controlling system. Floyd always knew how much time remained in the round. He understood when to attack, when to conserve energy, and when to frustrate his opponents who desperately needed momentum. Andre Berto also described how Floyd, he actually clinches strategically. Many boxers hold because they're either tired or they're hurt. But Floyd held to control the tempo of the fight. If an opponent started to build rhythm, if they started to build momentum, Floyd could interrupt it instantly. If a round became too chaotic, he could slow everything down. This was not avoidance. This is what you call ring management. He dictated the speed of the contest and forced opponents to operate within his preferred environment. And perhaps the most fascinating observation from Berto was Floyd's habit of watching an opponent's chest. According to Berto, Mayweather used this to monitor breathing patterns. Think about that for a moment. While most fighters focus on punches or focus on the shoulder to determine the trajectory of the punches, Floyd stayed studying fatigue. He wanted to know when opponents were recovering, when they were exhausted, and ultimately when they were vulnerable. That level of observation, it borders onto scientific analysis. Ironically, the fight against Andre Berto, it also showcased Floyd's elite defensive techniques against a fast and athletic fighter who is capable of using feints and explosive attacks. Now, Andre Berto was not slow. He was not predictable. Yet Floyd constantly neutralized his offense. He controlled the distance, anticipated movements, and made adjustments throughout the contest. What looked like effortless defense was actually the product of constant calculation and extraordinary awareness. And this raises a deeper question. Where did Floyd learn his brilliance? Is it genetic? Is it taught? And the answer is probably both. Because Floyd grew up in one of boxing's most famous families. He was surrounded by knowledge from childhood. Yet countless fighters receive great instruction and never develop this level of mastery. Natural gifts clearly played a role, but so did obsession, discipline, and thousands of hours of deliberate practice. So is Floyd Mayweather the greatest defensive boxer in history? There is certainly a strong argument. Fighters such as Willie Pep, Pernell Whitaker, and others belong in that conversation. However, Floyd combined elite defense with unmatched observation and control. He did not simply avoid punches, he manipulated opponents mentally, physically, and strategically. This is what made his system so difficult to crack and why his legacy remains extraordinary. So let's put our cards on the table and let's analyze this accordingly. So the first statement is that Floyd's defense was built on observation and information gathering, not just reflexes and technique. So we have some key phases there: observation and information gathering. However, here's a question. If you take away the reflexes and you take away their technique, is Floyd Mayweather still effective? The answer would clearly be no. But when you add reflexes, when you add technique, and then you add observation and information gathering, you have an elite level of operating. I think the observation element of Floyd Mayweather is absolutely exceptional. It brings a new level to boxing IQ, and the information gathering and boxing IQ and adaptability, there's a relationship there. There's definitely a relationship there. And the reflexes, the technique, that's genetic. The observation and the information gathering, that's learned. That's part of his boxing evolution, for want of a better word. So the next statement is Mayweather used the clock to control pace, energy expenditure, and round management. Again, when we look at boxing, as in all sports, time is important. But often when we think of time, we think about the trajectory of punches or the minute in between the rounds. Mayweather looks at the time to determine the next best reaction. He looks at the time to make a decision. Again, the time management of the clock and boxing IQ, there's a clear relationship. And some people may say, well, he's lacking focus when he's taking his eyes off his opponent, but he's doing it in a strategic way. When the feet get you out of punching range, you can look to the clock and then look back. The point is, it doesn't compromise his focus. It doesn't compromise him being present in the moment. But his time management is crucial. And then the next statement is his clinching was a tactical tool to disrupt rhythm and dictate tempo. Often, when boxers clinch, they are clinching to survive. Others clinch more strategically. Vladimir Klitschko, under the guidance of the great Emanuel Stewart, utilized clinching effectively. He utilized clinching to negate his opponent's punches and to wear his opponents out. Lennox Lewis, great fighter, he did the same thing, again under the guidance of Emanuel Stewart. And Floyd Mayweather uses clinching in a strategic way. Everything that Floyd does within the ring is strategic. And the clinch is an essential part of his arsenal. It's like his jab, it's like his straight right. It is effective. The next statement, Floyd studies opponents' breathing patterns to identify fatigue and opportunities. Think about that. Floyd studies breathing patterns to identify fatigue and opportunities. So he's not just looking at the shoulders for the trajectory of the punches, he's looking at the chest to determine your stamina level. I think this is the next level of boxing. The observational element, looking at the clock, looking at the chest. It's that information gathering. It's this new part, this new addition to the boxing IQ. And that's a very, very smart strategy. I guess it's smart in theory, but the implementation is difficult. How are you able to measure it effectively to dictate your next action? And I guess we've got a few things here that Floyd Mayweather, he gathers information before he makes a move. So he looks at the clock, he holds strategically, he's looking at the chest, and then when he's gathering all these different pieces of the puzzle, then he will move accordingly. And I think the studying the opponent's breathing patterns, that is great observation. Really, really great observation. And I think this is where Floyd Mayweather excels. Of course, you couldn't be Floyd Mayweather without the exceptional reflexes and the exceptional footwork, that ability to move, to get away from a punch. But then without the observation, without the observational skills, Floyd Mayweather isn't Floyd Mayweather. So what I'm saying here, there's multifarious pieces of the puzzle that enable Floyd Mayweather to be Floyd Mayweather. So the next statement is against Andre Berto. Against Andre Berto, Mayweather used elite defensive skills to neutralize speed and feints. First off, thanks to Andre Berto for giving such great observations on how Floyd Mayweather operates. I don't think anyone has given such a detailed account. So we all should be thankful for that. Secondly, from what I remember from Andre Berto, was that he was ferocious. He threw many punches. He was an offensive-minded fighter. So he would get into range and he would let his hands go. And Floyd utilized his elite defensive techniques to neutralize that. And of course, Andre Berto gave us the recipe that Floyd Mayweather would use. I guess it's an interesting observation here, but when trainers prepare you for Floyd Mayweather, are they able to collect all the relevant data to determine how to beat Floyd Mayweather? I wonder, do they see the time management? Do they see the chest observations? Clearly they would understand the clinching element and the footwork element and the counter-punching elements, but maybe there's elements that they don't see. Maybe that's part of the package, the unseen ability, as well as the seen ability. So the next statement is his brilliance was likely the result of both natural talent and lifelong boxing education. Of course, you can't be Floyd Mayweather without these genetic gifts. And you'll find in nearly every avenue of sport, you can't be elite without a level of great talent. But again, without the lifelong boxing education, Floyd Mayweather does not become Floyd Mayweather. He's a product of boxing education. It may not have been formal boxing education like at a university, but it was boxing education in the gym, boxing education through his family. There was a system, and he built on that system. You could argue that he added innovation to that system, and his genetics combined with the education was a phenomenal combination. And then we have Mayweather's combination of defense, observation, and control makes him one of the greatest defensive fighters ever. Some would argue that Floyd Mayweather may be one of the greatest fighters ever. Some put him as the greatest of all time, perhaps. Definitely a great fighter, definitely an elite fighter. When we talk about the greatest defensive fighter, we're making a specific claim, and he has to go in that conversation because he is an elite defensive fighter. And I think he ticks all the boxes when it comes to elite defense. And you could either add that you could make the argument that he brought innovation to the defense of boxing. Of course, you have serious contenders, Willie Pep, Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker was defensively absolutely incredible. The way he made people miss. Check the Oscar De La Hoya fight for a good reference with regards to the defensive capabilities of Pernell Whitaker. But you got to put Floyd up there, and a lot of people will have Floyd as number one, as the greatest defensive fighter. And whether you have him number one, number two, number three, he is undeniably a great elite defensive fighter. He utilizes his defensive capabilities at an optimum level, and that should be respected. And ironically, even though he was a defensive fighter, he still captured the public's imagination, which is probably more to do with his amazing marketing. But like I said, regardless of the marketing, regardless of the branding, Floyd's defense was absolutely elite. Here is my final statement. Think of this. Floyd Mayweather's greatest weapon may not have been his defense, speed, or reflexes, but his ability to observe and process information faster than anyone else. That is why the question of whether he is the greatest defensive boxer ever remains one of the most compelling debates. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community. That means I'm interested in your comments, I'm interested in your questions, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, simply like and subscribe and click the hype button. And if you want to watch more content like this, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.